My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm a realtor in South Central Alaska with Keller Williams, and my mission is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching you in real estate. And today, what we're going to be talking about are the top 10 things you need to know if you're going to be buying a home in Wasilla. This is a very unique market, especially if you're coming up from the lower 48. So lots of great stuff here. Before we get started, though, as always, give this video a like, subscribe, and let's go and jump into today's video. The first thing you need to be aware of if you're looking at moving to Wasilla, Alaska, is you need to know where you're going to be working and where you're going to be living. In other words, what is the commute going to look like? If you are doing like a good solid hour and a half one-way commute to get into Anchorage, which is what quite a few people do who live in Wasilla or Palmer, then you just have to be aware of that. The commute isn't too bad usually. Even during the winter time, you might have to slow down a little bit, but usually they're pretty good about keeping all the highways actually cleared. So usually that's not going to be too big of an issue, but you do have to just factor that in. One thing to also keep in mind, I know commuting is really not that big a deal in the lower 48 where most of it is just gridlock traffic. By and large, that is not what commuting looks like in South Central Alaska. Most of the time you're going to be on the highway, going highway speed, going from point A to point B. So for some people that does make it quite a bit less stressful. The second thing you need to be aware of when you are buying a home in Wasilla is that you need to check the phone reception where the property is. In other words, if you are going to buy a property, then you need to try to call someone from that home, just get an idea for what the reception is. I mean, I can speak for myself. I purchased a property in Wasilla not too long ago. A great little property. Only problem is, I sometimes have problems with the reception in certain parts of the house. And, not a bad thing, but, it's certainly something I would have preferred to have known about ahead of time. So if you're buying a property, it seems a little more remote in Wasilla, then yeah, you definitely want to go have at least one phone call from the property before you purchase it is what I would recommend. The third thing you need to be aware of if you are buying a property in Wasilla is there's a lot of building going on, which means there are a lot of gravel pits out here, and there's a lot of construction quarries and stuff quarry is probably not the right word, but there's definitely a lot of gravel pits where people, need the gravel for construction. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you do just want to be aware of what's in your specific area. For me personally, bought a property, gravel pits half a mile away. I legitimately did not know where it was for the first 2 or 3 months. So usually they're pretty low key. They're not trying to draw attention to themselves. But again, it's just something you want to double check on when you are purchasing a property. Fourth thing you need to be aware of, and this really isn't Wasilla specific, I do recommend this for everywhere that you're looking, but check the crime map for where it is that you're looking. There is not going to be anywhere in the world that's completely crime-free, and if you're not really sure about what the crime's going to look like or if you should be comfortable with it, do make sure you go check the crime map. There's, like I said, going to be crime everywhere, but really what you're looking for is just making sure the level of crime and the types of crime kind of matches whatever you're into. Some people are more into petty theft. Some people prefer drive-bys. It's really just kind of depends what kind of crime that you're into, but you just got to make sure that you're comfortable with whatever that level is. And additionally, I would say take a look at the crime map and then go check the crime map for where you currently live just to give you some context. The fifth thing I would really be aware of when you are buying a property in Wasilla is know that it is a developing area. And when it's a developing area, that means that a lot of these main thoroughfare roads are probably going to get expanded in the near future. Case in point, the Goose Bay Road. That road has quite a few houses along it. It is really developing in that area, and the road is getting expanded because it's actually pretty dangerous sometimes driving down that road because a lot of people are going down there. It's I think it's 45, 55 if I recall correctly. Lots of turnoffs, and if somebody's looking at their phone for half a second and someone's making a turn, then obviously you're going to have a collision. So they're broadening that road out, which is good. It's going to be safer. But if you have a property right next to that road, that's obviously going to be cutting into your property. So me personally, when I'm looking at purchasing a property, I want to check and see where the thoroughfare roads are and see if there's any chance in the next couple decades if that road is probably going to get broadened out. And obviously this is a lot of speculation because we don't know for sure how the development's going to happen in the area, but just do your best to try to understand and try to predict what the development's going to be like in the coming decades. Let's take a break real quick here. For those who've been watching for a bit, you know that I focus on the South Central Alaska area, and I haven't really focused a whole lot on, areas outside of that, but that is actually going to change because I am collaborating with real estate agents from all across the state talking about what it's like living in their specific areas, whether that be Fairbanks, Kodiak, Kenai, Homer, Juneau, all these different places. So if that's something that you're interested in, do make sure that you check the market updates that we'll have for those specific markets coming out in the next coming weeks and couple months. And just make sure that you're aware that those are coming out. And if you have questions, do feel free to contact me. I'd be happy to get you in touch with our colleagues in those areas that can assist you with whatever real estate questions you have there. The sixth thing that you really need to be aware of when you are purchasing a property in Wasilla is look for any signs of any high damage or any damage done to the property due to high winds. And what I mean by that, Wasilla is going to get quite a few big gusts of heavy wind going through from time to time. It's usually not going to be like hurricane force or anything like that, but it does get pretty blustery from time to time. And what I'm looking for is signs of downed trees, signs of trees that are coming down close to the house, trees that are leaning this way, signs of any other damage that might have been caused by heavy winds. There's not a whole lot you can do to prevent stuff like that. Really what I'm looking for is looking for preventative stuff just to make sure that further damage isn't going to be done in the future if there's another big windstorm. The seventh thing you really need to pay attention to when you are buying a property in Wasilla is the property next to a large body of water. So we have a lot of lakes, we've got a lot of rivers, a lot of creeks and stuff like that. Being, water frontage is great. You do need to just be aware of how much soil erosion is going on. If you're next to a lake, might not be very much. I would still check the tax assessment and then check how much land is being reported. If they say that, there's a 0.2 acres to this lot in the listing, and then the tax record says there's a 0.15, then that tells me there's probably some soil erosion that's going on there. Seller may or may not be that aware of it. If you're next to a moving body of water, then that is definitely going to be something I'm going to be taking a really close look at just to make sure that your property isn't getting eroded and it's going to be very difficult to sell later. So that's definitely something else I'm going to be very aware of. The eighth thing that you really need to pay attention to when you are first checking out a property is go check out the crawl space and just get a sense for how much moisture there is in the crawl space. So I know in some parts of the country, crawl spaces are really not that big of a deal. Here in Alaska, it's definitely going to be a big deal because, we get moisture in crawl spaces, and that's got to go somewhere. It's a whole lot better than it going into a basement. So crawl spaces are going to be a big deal. And you just need to be ready to go down there, check and see if there's moisture on top of the mat, signs of water being on top of the mat. And if there's no mat at all down there, then that's something we definitely need to ask about and check and see if there's signs of visible microbial growth. Obviously, I'm always going to recommend you contact a professional if you're concerned about mold growth in the crawl space. That is just something we want to check preliminarily, though. The ninth thing I'm going to check if I'm looking at a property in Wasilla is who does the snow plowing. This is something that the lender is going to ask, and it's something we're going to find out usually pretty early in the preliminary search. But most neighborhoods in this area are going to be taken care of by the city, or it's going to be taken care of by some association. Either way, we just want to know who's going to be taking care of the snow plowing for the roads. Your driveway's going to be a completely different set of people taking care of that. But at least I want to know who's taking care of the roads. The 10th thing that I want to know when I'm looking for properties in Wasilla is what is the zoning? Now, zoning isn't always a bad thing. And if you have lived in an area with zero zoning and it was just a Wild West, everyone can do whatever they wanted out there, you kind of know what I'm talking about. But the big thing is just making sure that you understand what you can and can't do. And if you're looking for somewhere where it's just complete free-for-all, do whatever you want with your property, that's definitely something we want to be aware of as well. Understand there are a lot of HOAs here in Wasilla that are pretty toothless as far as interfering in your life and saying you can't put out this decoration, that decoration. Usually, I could be wrong. I haven't heard any of those stories here in Wasilla. the big reason we have HOAs out here at all is usually as a collective means to pay for plowing, to pay for a community well, community septic tank, and that's usually what HOAs are. This is a community of people who don't like HOAs and don't want people interfering in their lives, so it's pretty uncharacteristic if you really have any of those issues in the future with HOAs. But this has been my list talking about the 10 things you need to be aware of if you are looking at moving to Wasilla or purchasing a property in Wasilla. I hope it's been useful. If you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to me either through my website or Facebook link down below.